Thank you for doing this.
Oh,
I
yeah.
appreciate it.
I'm slowly opening up. It's been a
Yeah.
year and a half, so this is good. And then, like I said, I when you brought the suggestion, I was like thinking you were joking, like maybe this is someone else.
Mm.
And when you said it, I was like, you got to listen to your, um, I guess something in the like in my insides. I'll try to see how I feel about it. And then I told the wife, and I was like, you know what, whatever. I'll just, I'll go ahead. Let's do it. Let's open up. It's about changing and being uncomfortable with the situation, but in the same time, it's opening up myself, which I've been isolating and avoiding a lot of things for so many years. So this is kind of discomfortable, but in the same time, it's something that's necessary with the healing journey. So when you said this, I was like, hey, I just didn't think, because I was like, one, the guests that you had are incredible guests, like super knowledgeable and all that. And I was like, and then you kind of auto critique yourself. It's like, I'm just this simple, kind of what I told you last time. I'm just a simple person that, I don't have a real story. But then in the same sense, we all have a different story. And I guess that's what's unique to all of us, right?
Yeah. And we listen and we pick up different things from each other and tools. How did you navigate certain moments where I can now say is like, oh, I can apply that to my life. Mm-hmm. Or I might have been in a dark spot, but if Daniel can do it, why can't I? Mm-hmm. So the purpose is greater than ourselves, isn't it?
It's kind of that judgment, that feeling of judgment from others, or the feeling of caring what other people think of you. Mm-hmm. But in the same time, you don't necessarily need that caring portion. Like the thought of others around you shouldn't dictate how you proceed with stuff, or do things in your life, or take opportunities that you would like to. Like if you're doing it for yourself, that's all that should matter. But you always have that kind of background voice going, oh, well, what about what they're talking about, or what do you think if I do this, what do you think they're saying about me? Or like kind of the same thing, like with like the social media. Like for me, my page was mostly, when I embarked on it and actually opened my social media account, for me it was mostly, I'm gonna write stuff that comes out of my head. I'm not going to try to correct it. I'm not going to try to make it all this nice. If there's mistakes, who cares? If it's read in a specific way that people are like, oh, this is kind of not really good writing, or this is like pre-kindergarten writing or stuff like that, I don't really care. For me, it was kind of me putting it out there in a permanent place that I can always go back and reflect on it. And kind of go like, okay, well, last month I was here. This is how I looked on the picture, or this is what I talked about that I said I was going to do. Oh, was I kind of accountable for my words later on? Oh, yes, I was. Oh, look, I went back. I said this and this. I didn't do it. So it's kind of in a sense, a journal that you can write, but I'm putting it more I guess in the
interwebs, the digital format. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. And then where it's like an example of this is one of my traumas was I couldn't say the word, or I would always see the face of the person that I lost in Afghanistan. And it would always get me into this emotional roller coaster, and then I would lose kind of control of my emotions or what I can do. I would go into a depressive state. So when I figured it out, and I think this was like 13 years later, exactly what date this incident happened, like it brought me to a state, and then I told myself, I'm going to put his picture on my page. And I'm going to write about this, and I'm going to say, this is why, this is, this is hard, this is hurtful. And then it kind of, the fact that it was on my page is every single time I would go on my page, I would actually see it. And then without even noticing, I was doing exposure therapy. And it actually helped with me getting through the trauma, because I'm putting those like exposure therapy slowly. And that's what one of my therapists said. Like, that's really a good way of doing it, because you're doing it unconsciously without thinking. You're doing it because you want to talk about it, but in the same time, it's having a long lasting effect on it, right? So that's what she did say. Like, if I have other stuff that I want to do, I did the urine of my mom, and how it was like something it took me so many years that I didn't understand why I was still having grief, or how I was not getting past it. And then finally figuring out that it's because I had so many regrets that I did not necessarily know. So it's been a very positive outcome, this social media thing, which I would never think to say one day in my life, because I always had a true dislike, but I think it was more for Facebook and stuff like that than Instagram. Instagram you still have a dislike sometimes when you see people doing or showing only a 2% of their life, when this life is so beautiful, this is so easy to have, and you're like, no, there's like, show the whole 100%, which I've always tried, I guess, or am still trying to show that it's not always flowers. Life is up and down, it's a roller coaster, and it's a hard work that you have to do on the daily process. And by doing that, it keeps you accountable, but there's always a benefit with doing it every day, which is basically like consistency. The more you do it, the more it becomes like your new rewiring, your new default setting. But the thing is, that it takes so long. And it's just funny how, for me, it took 36 years to actually figure out that there's some things that I haven't been doing consistently and that I have to start doing. And by doing it in the last year and a half, like, I'm not saying it's perfect. There's a lot of other aspects that I have to get a handle on, or get more of a consistent factor, or putting it in a different rewiring pattern for my brain to continually put it into effect. But it's been a complete change for my way of how I saw myself a year and a half to 2 years ago to how I'm in today, which is good.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you doing this, man. Like I said, we all grow together. We all go through the ups and downs in life, and man, we have to learn from each other. We have to share what we have learned thus far, and pass it along. That's the only way.
Oh yeah.
Looking back at your childhood, you're born on the east coast of Canada?
No, I'm actually I'm a military brat, so I was born in Germany. In one of the bases in Lahr. But I didn't have a long time in Germany. Like, my dad was there for 12 years. And at the old time, Canadian forces had a lot of bases all across Europe, or even the world. And then Germany, there was like Baden-Baden, there was Wirral, which was on the top end, and then there was Lahr, and then we were there when I was born, but my brother also was born there too. So we spent about 12 years. I only had about a year and a half to 2 years there. And then we moved to Canada. And then I went back when I was, I think, 5. But like, I've never really had like a strong, memory, or like strong root to my German. Like, I've always said, like, I'm proud to be German. I'm proud of being there. Like, I have a great lineage, I guess, on the German side. It's kind of a weird thing that we can a little bit talk a bit more about.
Mom and dad both from Germany originally?
No, just my mom. My dad's from Quebec, French Canadian, and then my mom is German, or she was. Unfortunately, she passed away when I was 18. But and then me and my brother, I only have one brother. We're both German as well. So it's kind of I guess I understand the people coming in Canada and then they have their Canadian citizenship form. Like, I have the same thing.
Nice.
And then if you lose it, it's a nightmare to do it, or to try to figure out, because I actually lost it later on in my life. And it's such a process to actually make them understand that you're alive. But they don't, unless you don't have that, that what is it, that embassy paperwork that is signed, true copy and all that, that
Mm.
they'll fully understand that, yes, okay, here's your new papers type of thing. So
Otherwise, it's not real. It's not legit.
yeah, which is like, I'm physically in front of you, but it's, who cares? We'll call myself John Doe now. But
Yeah.
no, so pretty much that. And then the rest of the time around Canada, God,
Nice.
we've been moving. Like, I've never had like a long, I think the longest that we've been when I was young was Valcartier, Quebec. That's because my dad was a infantryman Vendus, and then he was part of the airborne commandos, and then he went to the CBRN school. That's where what he was doing in Germany, and then he went to more of the standards teaching, bringing the next line of infantrymen, but in the Quebec portion of it. So that was the longest, but I can't even remember. That's why, like, for me, my career, the difference between me and my wife is I don't necessarily know what it is to have real long-term roots in one area. So I can move around and I'll still be comfortable in going, okay, well, this is my new place for now.
Right. So you're very
And,
transient. But the thing is, how was
yeah.
that growing up as a child, making new friends, new schools?
Oh, it's probably a pain, because like it's funny because I realize it now with my children, how when they have friends, how it is that when we move, it's not fun because you see how they're emotional, how they don't like it, how like now they're like, I don't want to move. Like, everything is nice here. I have good friends. I have school. My activities are here. But you're like, well, we don't know. Maybe we're moving next year. And it's kind of, so for me, like, I don't think I realize it, but this is where I guess I've never been someone that had a lot of friends, or I've never had like being like the popular kid in school because we were always like transient, always moving. So like, was there impact? Probably. Do I necessarily know like what the impact was on myself? I don't know 100%, but I can realize it on my kids how it's not fun. Like, there's times that you're like, okay, we need to stop. And I think at this moment right now, this is where we're kind of at, where the like, okay, if we don't necessarily have to move, then let's not move because everything is stable, everything is good right now. Like, let's not add this additional stress, not only to ourselves but the whole family. So it's kind of before it was like, let's go, because it was like me and the wife and the kids were young, right? Now it's more me, the wife, the two older ones, because my daughter's in God, what is it in English? Grade 8. She's going in grade 8, and then my other one is going in grade 5. But they're at kind of that transition point where you don't necessarily want to move too much, because like the 3 last years of high school are really important for leading you up to your next stage, which is college or university, and like whatever grades you have or however you perform in those time or years. That's what leads you up to the more opening doors of careers or courses or areas that you would like to learn further or actually dive into. So it's kind of we're in this kind of
it's a pivotal time. Yeah,
it's one of those things where we don't necessarily want to move because like I have my treatments here, everything is nice, simplicity, there's no traffic, there's like it's easy escape beside the water, but in the same time, after a certain amount of time you want to establish your home, right?
Yeah. What's missing where you guys are, and for the listeners, you live by an ocean. It's beautiful to see you guys out there often.
Oh, yeah.
Where exactly are you in Canada, and why do you want to move from that beautiful place?
So we're in Nova Scotia in Greenwood. So it's Annapolis Valley County. It's about an hour and 40 minutes, kind of from Halifax going towards the Bay of Fundy down to Yarmouth area. Is it a great place? Yes. do they have all the resources possible, like everywhere? Like you kind of, it gives you that kind of that sense of a town, a city will have more resources. Why? Because it's a town, a city, there's more places, people, there's more, it's normal, there's going to be more resources, but it comes with its pros and cons. Then you go to like a little rural place or urban place, I guess. I don't remember which one is which, but you kind of go in the outskirts, and by going the outskirts, there's less resources. You have to do a little bit more travel, but then there's like all these pros where there's like simplicity, there's tranquility, there's not all these extra stressors that come on to us. And being close to the water like us, the Bay of Fundy is 20 minutes away, an hour and a half to the Atlantic Ocean. So super easy to do whatever we want. We can just decide today, hey, let's go have supper and by the water, and it's easy to get done, easy to do. Why do we want to move? We love the travel. Like we spent 4 years in Germany for my employment as within the military. And that kind of gave us the I guess that itch of let's go discover, let's get this cultural enrichment, let's provide this to our children, that you don't necessarily have to stay in one place. There's so much beauty around that if you want to, you can actually go and see that. You can actually learn from it, and that you can actually see that there's more opportunities. Like you don't necessarily have to work in Canada. You can work international. You can work in all these other places. So like the next place would probably be out west. But the thing is that it depends if there's actually a position for me there. So it's kind of for us, like to finish my career would probably be, let's try out west. Let's see the mountains. Like the mountains is something too, right? Like the ocean, the water is fun, but having both would be like awesome. And I know like in Vancouver Island, where Comox and Esquimalt is, you have the mountains and then you have the ocean. So let's try that if that's a possibility. If not, like stay here a little bit longer. Yes, there's another opportunity in Germany in 2025. Let's try to apply that for that again and then go from there. It's more of we're not necessarily at that point where, like we're at the point that we don't want to move as much, but we still want to discover.
Yeah,
so
of course. Yeah.
If there's opportunities, let's see which ones there are and which ones would benefit the most for not only myself, but the whole family as a general. Because we got like I have 4 kids, so I have like my daughter is 13, my first son is 10, second one is 3 years old, and the other one is going to be 2. So there's kind of like 2 groups where we know these ones are going to be in high school, going to college, and then these ones are going to be like elementary, starting their, going through that process. So we do have time, but in the same time, you want to kind of, it's very finesse maneuvering to make sure that everyone's happy, which is not always easy to do, especially with a job that you have to be very flexible to be able to go and work everywhere and ensure that your family is okay with it. And I've always included my wife with that and said like which areas would be beneficial for not only myself, but for my wife. Because it's always like, I guess when you're doing it as a team, it's a lot better than doing it as an individual and then applying that pressure on the team type of thing.
Did you know you'd go into the military, the Canadian Armed Forces? Was it kind of in your path, in your journey, your destiny, because your father was in the military? Did you think this is where I'm going to be heading?
No, not one so bit. Because like I have a huge, like the military, I guess tradition or grouping or not grouping, but the military factor in my family, not only on my father's side, but on my mother's side, is really strong. Like my father, his father basically did D-Day, went on Juno Beach, did all that stuff, did World War II. But then on my mom's side, A lot of them were SS officers. They were in the German side, so it's kind of like a risk game. Like I had the Axis and the Allies in the same family, and it's nice to see. But for me, like I know my dad wanted me to do the cadets. I did do the cadets for I think a day or two, and then I said this is not for me.
Right.
But the moment that I guess the day that I woke up and said that I needed to join the military was like 2 years and a half after my mom died. But that's where I was going in the downhill spiral. Like I had gained 50 pounds. I was drinking a lot, doing drugs. I was doing like just losing control complete of my life and just what I wanted to do. And that was just basically because I wasn't dealing with the loss of my mom. But in the same time, I was living in a condo alone. So my dad went with his new girlfriend at that time. And then my brother was not in the house anymore. He was with his family. And then I was left alone, kind of trying to deal with that. So I leaned into all this type of bad stuff. And it's not like me getting help. It's me. I looked at myself in the mirror one day and I said, okay, I'm like, felt so disgusted with myself. I didn't like how everything was going. Like there was times that I did try to commit suicide twice during those 2.5 years. Like no one knew about this. And they'll probably discover this when they hear this because there's stuff that I never told anyone, but like I did try to do that type of stuff. And when I woke up, I just told my dad, I was like, I need you to bring me to the recruit center. I need to join the military because I need to get like an ass kicking to wake up, to change the orientation in my life right now, because it's if I continue down this path, it's guaranteed I'm not living anymore because it was like really bad. So when I did that, it's just funny because when we went in, my dad basically said, well, there's only 4 places that you can join in the military because he knew the recruiter and he blocked like infantry, combat arms, engineer, anything that was like in the front lines he blocked. But then he was like, okay, anything that's medical, desk job, stuff like that, you can go in. And then I was like, well, I'll join to be medical because when I was 12, I was kind of helping with my dad deal with my mom and how she was sick, giving injections, washing my mom, like dealing with all these, like her sickness and the fact that she was kind of, her mobility was going to being decreased over the years and being in a wheelchair and being on medical pumps. And then my brother that was in a coma for about a year, not a year, but he was in a coma for about a month to 2 months with like a crike and chest tube. So the medical aspect was always there. So I was like, okay, I'll choose medical. And then they were like, well, do you want to become an officer or a non-commissioned member, which is like an NCM, which is like private to and going up. And I just said, well, I want to start at the bottom of the ladder and go up. But I guess that was for me, that was just because that's how like my father and his father was. Like they were both NCMs. One was a sergeant, one was a warrant. And on the German side, they were all officers. So I was like, I'll start with the bottom. I was like, I'd rather start at scratch and then build myself up and do my own like rep and build, I guess, build my own life from the scratch, because that's what I needed. I needed I needed to restart everything that I had, because for the last 2.5 years before, like I went to college, but I screwed my chances of reapplying to any other colleges because I just didn't, instead of dropping the courses and telling them what was going on, I just didn't show. So then, your GPA would go down, mine was crashing. And then, trying to apply to other colleges, they were like, well, no, we can't apply you because your grades suck and stuff like that. So, it was the best option right now, and never turn back, never tried to change route or path. I've always stayed in the medical side. I've always stayed as like the medical technician or a medic. And I've always tried to say, like, what can I absorb the most on this and try to apply it in the outside in the same time. And I can't say there's any, like, has been rough, yes, but it's been what was needed and what is needed at this time right now.
If you don't mind me asking, how old was your mom when she passed away?
Yeah, she was 46.
So young.
So yeah, she just turned 46, and then 2 months later, she passed away.
Cancer?
Yeah, well, it's kind of one of those points where it was generalized cancer, but it was to the point that she basically drowned um, with the fluid in her lungs. Um, but that was just because of how bad the cancer spread, how much it was causing more issues like all over. There's so many things. I won't go too much in
For
depth on
sure.
that
Yeah.
one, but it was like not really recognizable. And the day before she went to the hospital is the day I was kind of hiding in the basement. But I told one of my ex-girlfriends at the time that like this is the last time I'll see my mom, because I had that really bad feeling and I was hiding, and that's one of the portions I regret not even going up and seeing what was going on. But because that was the last time that you could talk to my mom, that she was um, lucid enough to be able to talk. So yeah, she was 46, but it was since she was 36 years old that's where her health issues just went on a downhill spiral. And yeah.
So Monday, August 7th, thank God it's a holiday. That will be 4 years for me since I lost my mom. I don't know. It
It's
doesn't get
it's never
easier.
easy.
Never
No,
easy. And I was going to
no.
ask you, is X amount of years later, those moments, that day, it's embedded in you forever. I feel like I
Yeah.
can't shake it off. Everything is replayed, amplified. Emotions are so high on that day. And for the good and bad, where you're like, okay, well, at least she's at peace. But you lost your mom. You lost somebody that was so vital to you, and mom was a pillar to me.
I guess you only have one mom in your life, right? And like when I lost my mom is because the thing that I now realize is she was kind of my confidant. I would always talk to her, and I didn't necessarily remember I was doing that until I was doing this healing process where I was always going to my mom. We would always have these nightly talks. And it's through doing the healing process that you kind of start remembering more of the positive, the little things that you don't necessarily remember because you're at that stage in the grieving stage. You're always at that. What is the final moments that you had with them? Like for me, like one of the other regrets was I don't even remember the day when I actually said I love you to my mom, and she was lucid and she would know, and hearing it back. So that's why for like me and my kids now, it's so important. I say it every single night, and then I hear it back, and I'll annoy them until they tell me it back. But it's because of that. Like you never know, and because that hit me once, I'm not going to do it and make that mistake twice, right? So when you lose that kind of pillar, like you said, it's hard stabilizing yourself. But if you're left alone to try to stabilize that and actually get back on top of it, it's really hard. And it goes through a process. Like for me, the times that hit the most was the 5-year mark and the 10-year mark without even realizing it, because time passes so fast. It's just that we don't realize it at the moment. And like, that's where it hits the hardest, because you're continuing on with your life, and then you're thinking that you forget. And then when it comes back, you're like, oh, today was the birthday of my mom. Oh, today was the anniversary of the death. Oh, and then today was the date that I remember the last, or like for me, her like their peach. She usually had like this type of peach perfume. Like if I smell a peach perfume, I'll get that memory lapse right away, right? So it's not easy, but like when we went to Quebec on this Christmas that just passed. And it took me basically 13 years to actually show my kids where my mom was buried. And I was like, this is I have to do this. This is like part of the healing process. And doing that actually helped a lot to do the memory, because I couldn't speak about it to my kids, and it's a lot easier now to do it without having that lump in the throat, the chokeness, the heat that comes over. But it takes time, and I don't think you really 100% get through it, because you'll always have that memory in the back. But like, I don't know, like for me, like with my wife, her mom is basically the mom that I lost. She's the one that's replacing that. Like, I have a special relationship with her. Like, we always bug each other, and it's always fun. But like for me, like my second mom is her, and like for me, that's like really important, because like I don't necessarily have that anymore. So that was she was the one that kind of replaced that. It actually helped a lot. But I don't know if that's for everyone, but it
worked for you. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's a good thing that helped, but is it easy to pass through? No.
You're so right, though.
Will it get easier? Sometimes, but in the same time, it depends on that year, depends on that time. Like, what were you doing? But for me, like, what's hard is I don't have a lot of photo albums. Like, I have my last, like, and that's what I told myself this year I'm gonna share when it's her birthday, is the last picture that we took that last Christmas. And I want to share that, because for me, that's like the only last family picture that we have, which is kind of like, I don't have a lot of other family pictures, but for me, that one's the one that counts the most, because it was the last time that we were all four together. So kind of like symbolic, right? And we do have it. That picture is when we go up the stairs in my house, in our house where we are right now. That's the one picture from my family that we have there that was like really important.
When you think of your mom today, is there peace now in the grieving process?
It's a lot better now. It's a lot better now, because that grieving portion, or that, I guess, that job that was left undone is now done. Okay. And you get that kind of silent. How I explained it to the therapist was, you get that sense of lightness, and kind of like a weight is lifted. And it's not like, okay, now I can forget about it, let's pass on. It's more of for me, it was, there's no more regret. Like, the portions that you regret, yes, they're understandable, but like, I'll kind of put it more in context. Like, for me, we had a funeral book, and I'm the only one that has it in the whole family. Like, I'm the one that gathered everything and kept it. And for 13 years, I've always had it, but I didn't put my words into it. So when I hit the grieving process, because my family never knew about it, like, I didn't even tell my mother, or not my mother, my wife. She didn't know a lot of stuff about, what was going on with me, my mom, and the memories and all that. So when I opened it up, I went to a kind of very, very depressive state. But when I decided, what, I think one of the healing processes is actually to write my word in the book, and actually give my last saying that I would love to tell her. And I wrote all of my regrets, like what I regret, what I wish I would done better as a kid. And it's normal. Like, I was 18, and as a young teenager, you don't necessarily, you make it hard on your parents. And I know it, because my kids, same thing. And it's just a phase, right? Because you don't necessarily think that you're going to lose your parent at that kind of critical stage in your life. So for me, it was, a lot of it was like, not being there, not saying I love you, not really appreciating time with her, all these little minute things that seemed like really not a lot, like not heavy, but for me, it was like so important. Not appreciating time and all that type of stuff, being more present. So when I started writing that and I reread it and I shared it to the therapist and all that, and I said that that's where the kind of the peace went. And then when I went to see the burial area with my family and showing my kids and saying, well, Mom, I'm presenting my family to you, because like I know she's proud. She would have been proud, and she is proud. But it's like it's one of those points that you would always want to show your parents, hey, here's my first house, here's my first kid, this type of stuff, right? So for me, that was like, you know what, I know there's a higher sense in this universe. So I believe that I'll show you by showing where my mom was buried, and talking about why I placed the urn, why was the location of the urn important. And then there's a bench in front, the sun that would shine always on it when the sun was going down, like the importance of it and all that, and sharing it with my family. For me, that's what lifted that burden, or that kind of removed the veil of the grief and said that now you can pass on, but in a more positive way. Like, is it always going to be a negative way of like, this is the day I lost my mom, this is the stuff that I can't, show them? Yes. But because there's that positive, you're not in that grieving portion anymore. You're at peace with everything that you've regretted or you've had that involved the loss of my mom. I guess for me now it's easy, not easy, but it's a lot simpler to think about, to talk about, to reflect about, without going into that emotional spin of being depressed and crying and choking up and not being okay for a few days afterwards.
Well, it's that perspective, right? And it's you grow through what you go through, and now it's about honoring her and passing on some of the things that she taught you. And instilling it into your children. It's a circle of life, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But my question to you is this: Monday will be 4 years for me, and I'm thinking, where did time go? Mm-hmm. I remember things like it was yesterday, and there's certain moments where I am getting worried because memories are fading.
You're not going to remember everything, which, like, for me, like I say that, but it's true.
How do you lose somebody you love? How do you forget somebody you love? I don't want to ever forget that person. That person meant everything to me. For me, it was like, there's like younger pictures of my mom that we have. So I'll always remember how, like, I have pictures of my graduation in high school. She, like, for me, my memory was, she was always present. Always, always, always there. Hard worker, always making sure there's there was always good food. There was plenty of food, that the hospitality was there, that we were loved. All these kind of little aspects that are kind of important. The share, the compassion and love that she had for us. So for me, it's like, well, how can I utilize that and make it a long lasting memory, is by doing the same thing towards my kids, mm-hmm. right? Or towards people I love. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily have to be your kids. It can be your siblings or others, people like that. So, and then I think for so many years afterwards, for me, it was always going to visit the urn, but due to the fact that I move so often, it's not really a possibility. But lighting a candle, that's what
there's so many little things. I think it's just I think I guess it's allowing yourself on that day to know that I might be a little bit more on edge. A light might be a little bit more, not spaced out, but more distant, because you need to be more with your thoughts and yourself, and that if there is emotions, then there's going to be emotions, but just allow go. It's basically with yourself, with your emotions and the thoughts that are going through your head, and then allowing yourself to be okay with it, like saying that, okay, well, this was a shitty day. Yeah, this was a
Totally.
shitty day. There's someone lost, but like the day before, or how was it before? Like, is it something that, like, for me, was it, I always say, was it something I could control at that time? No, absolutely not. Like, but, um, like, was there, like, at that, like that photo, that last Christmas, what was important is we were there as a family. So we were there. Okay, that's so being together as a family is important. Hence what I'm trying to do with my family every single time. So then you kind of like, you transpose what that person did for you, and you say, okay, this, I'm going to take this and I'm going to do it for my family, my friends, my siblings, or people that I care about. And I'm going to make sure that they understand, they know this, and that, that you're there, that like, for me, it's like that I'm there for them, my kids, like, more now. Like, I'm still in that process of opening up. Like, I was avoiding a lot, but it's just funny how it makes you wake up, I guess, in a sense. And after that is, like, for me, because I can't visit it, I can't visit the area. For me, it was mostly like a candle, or just allowing myself to think about it. But like, like, it took me, like, there's so many years where I regretted saying, like, I can't even remember the sound of her voice. I can't remember, the smell, or I can't remember, like, what exactly, how she looked like. But in the same time, like, we change so often that it's okay to forget those things, because, like, the sound of the voice is, yeah, it's something that you're attuned to, but it's also something that changes over time. So it's not, so you're kind of still in the past, while what can I bring from the past to the present, and enjoy it now. So, like, the more the positive vibes, and knowing, like, was it something, like, for me, was, if she would have still stayed, would her living be? And the living would have been horrible. So,
Quality of life.
yeah, so, like, is it better to, like, for my mom, like, the last words I told her was, like, you don't have to hold on anymore, because it's okay. Because I knew she was holding on for me and my brother. Like, for her, we were everything for her. So the fact of me telling her that, even though at that time probably it was just like a white lie.
For all our moms, can we just say this, for our moms and any
Oh, yeah.
mom out there right now, the courage they have, like,
Like,
within them, like that
you have,
strength that, to still be there for their children. I mean, our moms were there, and saying it's okay, like you said, it's okay, mom.
uh, the relationship between a child and a mom is incredible. And there's nothing, you can't necessarily compare it to the relationship of, um, a child and the father. Like, it's like two different aspects in my view, but a son and a mom, and a daughter and a mom is different too. So there's, like, so different. Um, but I don't know, moms are, like, my wife, mom of four kids, like, hats off on the stuff that she does. Like, just their compassion, their patience. There's the stuff that they think about to make sure that the kids are either well entertained, that they have everything. Like, hats off to all of the moms, because they do stuff that I could not even fathom to start or to do, that I wish I could. But in the same time, listen, they do a lot more, and it's okay that there's a difference to what a father and a mom will provide in the child. And I think that's what's, for me, what's important is, my father gave me this, my mom gave me this. It just, unfortunately, I wish I could have learned a little bit like earlier, how to, open up, talk about my emotions, not do all that. But, like, for me, my healing process, that's the loss of my mom kind of dictated everything else that happened from that moment to until I started realizing, or until I went to get help.
How are you doing? You doing okay?
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good.
I'm loving this. And Chris is going to be on. That'll be awesome as well. Chris Gore.
Yeah, I saw. I was like, there you go. Good.
He's a good guy, isn't he?
Breaking the. Oh yeah, he's
Solid.
a guy that cares a lot. He cares so much, and he's done a lot, even with through my process of calling me when I'm in the down, and
Mhm.
he does so much for others and little thoughts, and yeah, it's just a funny thing. That's what I told my wife with this process, that I have more connections with people that are digital, and I feel more of a connection to the people that are digital because we kind of all um, have the same path, I guess, in a sense, but we all speak the same language. Where the healing path, this is important, all that, and it's funny how when I try to do it with people in the real life and have that connection, they don't necessarily give you that good vibe or that 100% commitment to what you want to, what you not what you need, but being an active listener is kind of important. And a lot of people don't necessarily do that. That I've noticed on the outside
Mhm.
or in the real life compared to in the digital life. You'll be like, okay, do you need time? And then we'll actually take the time and do it. And and just being able to listen and not say that, oh, well, I know how you're feeling, but no, we know you don't necessarily know how you're feeling, type of thing. It's kind of it's a weird thing. And yeah, he's a really good guy, and it's funny because he shared something like, "I can't wait to listen to this." I'm like, "Stop putting the pressure, man. This is already this is already stressful enough." I was like, "You gotta stop. This is just a normal talk.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it."
It's so cool though to see so many of us come from different paths, different backgrounds, yet we're all on that same journey. It's
Yeah,
that same tone,
but
that same vibe.
that initiative that you did in June, honestly, like it's funny because like I was saying, like last June, I didn't get really involved into this, and then this June, it felt different. It felt like, okay, I really want to talk, open up a little bit more in the month of June and do stuff that was different. And like that, I've done that. But that initiative, like and sometimes I actually go back on the page and I go listen to the other people's, like, little tips. And it's not necessarily that it was like for only men. It was more of a, let's put our vulnerability out there. Let's talk. Let's like share our tips on what was beneficial, because it doesn't necessarily, like you said it a little bit before, like it's not necessarily that it's going to react or it's going to have an impact on everyone, but it will maybe have an impact on that one person, and that's what is needed, or what ideally should is the end state, is you want to have that impact so that it actually brings that person to the next step. And it's kind of like when we were talking, me and Sash, on the live, where we're on that, all on that same path. It's just that some people are in the front and some are in the back, but there's that sense of being inspired by the person that's in front of you, because they're working a little bit longer. They've done a little bit more of the time, the work that's needed for the healing process, but it inspires you to push forward even more. But then by you doing that, it has a trickling effect or a ripple effect on the person that's behind you, that's looking at you as you are looking at that person ahead. So
I always say
that whole thing kind of, it seemed like that's the thing. We're all on the same train. We're going there, and we don't care who's on what type of stage or what
no,
part of their
absolutely
life.
not. Yeah.
It's more as a general, like, let's get together and push this message, which it's incredible because, like, when you work in the medical field, you always want to push, like, speak up. It's important to talk, emotions and all that. And I would push that, and you would be an advocate at the workplace. It's okay, and you would have more, and I would have more compassion for others in regards to opening up, talking about it. But then when it came to myself, I was not showing that same compassion, that same openness or ability to actually open up. And now that I'm working on that, it's incredible how it's affecting how I'm actually opening it up, or how I'm actually doing the mindset of my work is completely changed as well. Where like the message I used to send or used to say is completely different nowadays than it is before, because of my inner change and the fact that I can actually help a little bit more, because I've done the I guess the work, but it's a continual life work. It's never
it
going to
never
stop
ends.
until we get better.
No.
Yeah.
But like you said, if you've got the tools and someone has helped you in life, the goal is to pass it along. This is a relay. Life is a relay, and you got to pass that baton. Those tools, those tips that have helped you. Everyone has a story. Everyone has struggled. Everyone has gone through the ups and downs of life, even though they might not agree with that or accept it. Life's not just linear, is it?
No.
It's a
It's
roller
like a
coaster.
mountain.
It is a
It's like
mountain.
or even like a roller coaster. There's always ups and downs, but the thing is that it never loops back.
No.
It's like a continual process forward. But that's the thing, and it's funny how, like in the healing process, you don't necessarily see the progress you're doing until you reflect back on it, or you have things that you can see, right? Or like that you reflect back on what you've done, or you've physically, I guess, have a paper that shows you. Because like you always go, because for me, I guess when at the beginning of my stage, I was like, okay, this is going to be a 1 year thing. I'm going to be there. I'm going to get this done with. Okay, I know exactly what it is. It's going to be easy to get done. And God, did it prove me wrong completely. But the thing is that by doing the process, like you go, oh, it's kind of like let's say the soldier that died and all that I can control and all that. It took me 7 months to completely be okay with saying his name and seeing his picture, but like there's still, that's like an aspect of the scenario that happened that time. Like I'm okay with saying his name and that, but the scenario is still something that's traumatic in a sense.
You joined the military around
22, 23, actually 21.
Wow.
No, yeah, 22.
Okay.
Sorry.
So you joined the military. How long till you're deployed in 2009 to Afghanistan?
A year and a half later.
Wow.
So I joined actually. Oh man. I signed in the military December 2006. I went on my course after Christmas 07. And I deployed in Afghanistan March 2009 to October 2009. So yeah, very fast.
When you are told that you're going to be going to Afghanistan, what were some of your thoughts at that moment in time? Were you married?
No, I had the wife that I have now, and no kids.
No kids. And what was dad and brother like?
My dad was very stressful because he kind of knew what it was, because he's done so many deployments and all that. But he understood the job that needed to be done. My brother, I kind of think he was more oblivious to the fact that I'm going to a war zone. And for me, I was just like, it's part of what I signed up for. And I knew when I came in, there's a friend that was in the military like multiple years before me. They're the ones that actually told the training command over there saying that we need this guy in this deployment. And when they drafted me, or I guess we can say drafted, when they took me on to the tour, they linked me with the Lord Strats, so the tanks. and the QRF, so the quick reaction force, and they said this person is going to be with them at all times. So I was the AM. I was basically the medic for the LDSH that was not on the main camp. We were in the mountains in Massamgar, so it was more of a let's go. Whatever I'll see over there, I'll see over there. I didn't really have like a pretext of like, I'm ready for this, I'm ready for this. I don't necessarily think I was ready for anything that I've seen over there. I was just reactive to everything that was there. Like you always have the tools, but the thing is that I went from joining the military, doing the courses to be in the military, and then doing my trade courses, and then deploying right after.
There was no buffer.
Well, it's like I started. So you did your first medical course, and then right after that, you're going and you're applying, or you're trying to apply what you've learned into real context. So like I did tactical medicine courses and stuff like that, but it's always in a semi-controlled area. You don't fully see the force of a war zone until you're actually over there, and even then, like, not everyone sees the full extent. I just didn't think being part of like the tankers, like I knew I was going to be more active, more out. I just don't think I was. I realized, which you realize when you start thinking about it and you're actually in the healing journey and going back and saying, like, what did you actually see? And then I'm like, well, I saw like over 160 IED blasts that we had to go investigate, or that, it blasted while we were there, or stuff like that, because we were the quick reaction force. So we had have to be gone or help someone that was in a bad situation. Or then, we evacuated 86 people from 86 people within like a Black Hawk that had to come and get them evacuated out of our FOB, and that was the highest evacuation rate in all that time over there. Like multiple like there's so many. I don't really think that, like, looking back at it, like, was it an experience? Yeah. Would I do it again? Yes. Like
you would do it again.
Yeah. Like you know exactly. You can actually see the medicine that you're applying to a person and actually know it's having its effect because you're doing it in a real life situation. So, and that adrenaline rush is fun because you're helping, but you're helping them at the bad stage of their life. So like a bad day for someone was an awesome day for us. And it seems weird to say, right? But it's reality for when something bad happens, that's where we come into play, and that's what you signed up for. It's just, I don't think the thing that I don't, that I think, anyways, for me, that I had a hard time with, or I'm having a hard time with, is the fact that you don't have a shut off time. You don't have a debrief. Like your debriefs are very short. Your time to be able to sit with what happened is short, because the next day or the next few hours, you're off onto another mission. You don't have that. Like, let's say we lost the Canadian soldier when I lost him. Okay, yeah, cool. You're going back to camp. Oh, boom! There's not an explosion. You got to go out. Like, there's no like buffing time. There's just like, it's nonstop. The only time that I was forced to sit back and stay in the camp and not go outside the wire all the time was when I got my shrapnel in my hand, and I was physically injured, and I was also in a state, and at that time, where they were like, no, we need to kind of keep you in because, one, you got this injury in your hand, now you have to take medication. Now, like, we have to talk to make sure you're in a good state to go back out. And for me, it was more of a frustration, because I was like, now you're making me look like I'm not doing my job. But it's like you don't allow yourself to fully comprehend, because you're always go, 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 go. and you're always in that reactive survival mode, which I finally notice now, because that's the thing. Like, you never, like, it's like in a war zone, you never know what's happening. So for us, when we were always rolling, I would see a culvert, which is kind of like I guess a little, kind of like a ravine, or like a water path or something would pass off, and they would hide stuff under that, and then we would pass over and explode and stuff like that. But every time we would pass, I would just close my eyes and say, "Oh, cool, I'm still alive," and then continue on. But you're doing that as a kind of like a laughter, but it's not necessarily a good. You're not in a good state if you're doing that every single time, right?
I wonder if you become delusional and you start having to put these guards up in your mind to offset things. So, when some people are nervous, they laugh more.
Probably. Like, there's times that I guess it was more of a coping mechanism to kind of be more at peace of the fact that you never know what's going to happen here, right? It's just that when I left, I always told my wife, like, don't worry, I'm going to come back and stuff like that. So you're not 100% attuned to exactly what the case is when you're over there. And then when I went back to see my wife, and then she told me she was pregnant, I was like, well, I can't die now, because, there's something that's waiting for me when I come back. So there's that kind of higher sense that for me, the thing that made me fight more and actually try to control what I could do was the fact that I had an unborn child that's going to be at home, and that my wife is going to be there, and that, I'm going to be a father, and I have to do this. Like, it's something that's made for me to do. But in the same time, like, there's a lot of times that if I look back, I was this close to not being here today. And it was not my time. And it's me realizing it now, and actually going through the healing process now and talking about it and opening up, because I basically came back from my tour, showed pictures to my friends and the wife and all that, and I basically closed the chapter. And I didn't talk about Afghanistan until it blew up. It blew up until it basically,
no pun intended.
Yeah, kind of. It kind of where the stage where people were like, my clinician was saying, like, all this stuff that you're talking about is not normal. Like, you're saying that it's just the normal you. This is how you are. People need to accept it, but everything you're saying and doing is not normal. And then by going and opening it up, and then talking to the psychiatrist, like, it took them 15 minutes to basically diagnose me with moderate PTSD with other complications and stuff like that. But it didn't take them long to say that, okay, we just started, and I can tell you you're like hitting the bar right away. And like, it took us 4.5 hours, the first interview. And they were like, yeah, this is.
First off, thank you for being here today. And thank you for this, man. I appreciate it. And Canada appreciates you. So thank you for that. You're not only now working on yourself, you're doing it for the betterment of your family and for others. So thank you. And it's all about giving, it's the service. You are a serviceman. But when it comes to that, what was something that they realized that you were struggling with, and for them to notice so soon that, oh, this is what is not normal?
It's
like, what were your thoughts like at that moment in time?
I honestly was oblivious completely to everything. I was like I didn't have patience anymore. I was very hypervigilant. There's so many things, like there's a list of crap.
Post-war, so before getting deployed and then after being deployed, what was some of the differences that, looking back now, you noticed?
So looking back, more aggressive, very more hypervigilant, to the point that I would like put scenarios through my head that this is going to happen, this is going to happen. Okay, this is what I'm going to do, which is like, and putting scenarios that would never happen. Always doing like catastrophizing, negative thoughts, always being down on myself, always not being positive, saying bad stuff, not like having no filter, which is still something I'm working on now, that, you have to watch out what you say or how you say it, stuff like that. But it's more because I just didn't care anymore of like whatever outcome would happen, or, you know, driving more aggressively at work. I would take everything, like if it was an emergency and I had 15 minutes to get it done. So I was everything that if something would be like a month task, it would take, I would do it. Okay, I got an hour, and then I would apply all this stress upon me. I would have a patient, let's say a patient that is a very easy patient, but then I would get it done and I would go like, this is an emergency call. So my head would always spin to a bad place where it has to get done now, where it wasn't. So it would always kind of nonstop. And like the sleep was disturbed. Nightmares were incredible. The only thing is that I never noticed about it. Like there's stuff like from the first time when I came back that my wife told me, I think 2 years ago, where I was tossing and turning. It was kind of dangerous. Or there was times that she was like, okay, is he going to kind of, choke me in the middle of the night type of stuff? Or, like, there's stuff that you don't necessarily understand. And like, even recently, like this week, like I was tossing and turning a lot and being very movementing, and the wife that wasn't comfortable with that. And it's just, there's a lot of stuff like that I didn't necessarily have. Like the being snappy, being more rough, being just very talking bad, but making people feel bad in the same time, and not caring and not having any emotions. Like there's like people that would die in the family and I would be stoned, like stone faced. There's just no emotions whatsoever, no compassion. Like I lost a lot of those factors that I didn't necessarily understand. Or it would go to the extremes. Like I would go super angry for the minute things, or go super emotional, depressive, and being not able to actually function. It's a weird thing. And then I always thought it was just normal. Like it's normal. I have more kids in my life, or this is just, stuff that's happening, and it's just, you need to absorb it, and you need to understand and get through it. And, just, you're the issue, not me, type of thing.
Looking back, isn't that life, where we put our own projections on others? And then we have to keep revisiting ourselves and fixing them and tweaking them and saying, whoops. It's being having that self-awareness to realize, yeah.
But I had none of that.
None of that at the time.
Like I had none. Like I'm saying this, like if I had it, but I didn't. This is all stuff that is just because of my healing journey, that the process that I'm on right now, understanding that, oh God, I was like this. Mm-hmm. I was not fun. Like I was not a good person. I was not like, there's probably shit that I did that I made my wife go through that I shouldn't have made my wife go through. Like there's stuff that I did that with my kids, or how I talk to them, or how I not discipline. It's not discipline them, but the way you would tell them that you did something bad was probably not the way I should have done it. Like there was not, like I don't hit my kids and all that, but I think it's more getting them to, like, you need to listen to me, you need to talk to me, or like stuff like that. Like that type of stuff that I didn't realize I was doing, but now when I realize it, or when I can catch myself from doing it, then I'm like, oh wow, I don't want to go back to that, because I would always tell myself that that's how I was brought up, because my dad took him so many years later on in his career to realize that he had PTSD. So, but the thing is that now, because I'm on my healing journey, I can go back and say, well, this is what I lived in my childhood. And I was kind of reapplying the same thing to my kids without noticing that my issue. And this is and that's what's hard, was where you don't necessarily know you have it, because you're not always self-aware. Like I was never thinking in the present. Like I'm only doing this now. Like my kids would be born, Like I remember every single day when my kids were born, and that's something that I will never forget. But like those are the times that I was like, okay, that I was present then. But then after that, can I say 100% I was present every single day since my daughter is born? No. And it's hard to, when you reflect back on it, it's hard to be at peace with the fact that you have these beautiful things that are happening in your life and you're not fully appreciating it, fully absorbing it, because you're not necessarily aware of what's going on in your head or what happened that changed you. Because you hear it a lot where you people go to war, and like I know from the time that I went there to the person I went when I came back, I was not the same person. And my wife told me that, and also like I came back a different person, guaranteed.
So tell me this, why did you isolate yourself? You talk about this a lot. For so long, you weren't able to get out there to speak. You weren't able to put yourself out there. What was going on during that time? And then how did you find the opportunity in the window to say, now is my time?
Why I was doing that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it was more of a coping mechanism. Mm-hmm. Like from the therapy session, what we've realized, what I've been doing is I've been creating barriers. And then every time there was something that would come up that I don't like, or that would be traumatic or create issues or create even a hence or a hint of emotion that, oh, I'm going to start feeling this emotion, then I would create a barrier, and then I would put it in a box, and then I would compartmentalize it in my head, and then push it away, and then say I don't want to use it. But it would never go into the long-term memory. It would always be in the frontal prefrontal cortex, and then it would activate by itself without me noticing it. And the self-isolation, I don't know if it was because I didn't necessarily know how to talk about it, like how to divulge the information that I'm trying to feel, that I'm living in my head, so that someone else can actually understand and go, okay, I'm sensing this is what you're saying, this is what you're feeling, what you're going through. Let's go get this type of help. So I don't know if that was part of it, or the fact that I just felt that I didn't have anyone to talk to. And that would be for like my father and even my brother or anyone, even my wife, like that I basically was alone in this world, and that I can't, like I have to, kind of like that burden that you place on yourself that I need to get everything done and I can't ask assistance for this. Like it has to just be from me. But that in your head, you're like, no, not everyone, you can't do everything alone. Like you need a support system, you need friends, family, you need people to help you, because that's how you advance in life. But then I didn't have that. I didn't realize that. And the thing that made me realize that is just basically when I was just the clinician was just asking me questions, and I was completely oblivious to, I was like, whatever, I'll answer your questions because you're, higher medical authority, and I'm just, we're working together, and we're just shooting the shit. And every time he would ask me a question, he would go, and then I was like, what the hell? And I would get frustrated of being like, what the hell are you trying to do? Like, we're like, at the end, it was like, okay, this has been like 40 minutes of asking questions. Like, this is starting to point. And he's like, at the end, he basically said, well, I was actually assessing you without realizing. But at the end, he was like, I'm basically looking at myself in the mirror. And he said, only thing is that again, I hit a wall. And until I realized that I was having PTSD and going through this stuff and all that. And he said, you are going to hit that wall. You just don't notice it, but I'm going to stop you from hitting that wall. And then that's where he said, you're going to actually book an appointment. And I just said, okay, well, I'm going to listen, because if I don't do it, I know you're going to come and hassle me because we work in the same place and all that. But it's just funny how this clinician is the same person that was with me in Afghanistan. It's just that we were in two different locations. So they would receive everything I was sending. We would be sending them from the outside the wire. They would receive it. So he was in the main camp. So who was asking questions and I was answering him, he knew exactly what was happening because he was there at the same time, and it kind of like had that link right away. And it's just funny that, and that's what me and my wife say, like that the year that I was posted in Nova Scotia, he was posted a year afterwards, and it just felt that now's the time. Like it wasn't. I don't think like there's times in that the universe works its wonders.
Yeah.
I think that's one of those times where it was just we needed to be here. This person needed to be there in the same time I was there. And then that conversation just needed to happen and occur. And then from there on, it was my willingness to say, okay, well, I'm just going to listen up and we'll see what happens. And by going through it and opening up, because it took me 8 months to finally accept that, okay, I'm going to start opening up. I'm going to start doing this. And that's kind of the same time frame that I opened my social media and say, well, the one sense the opening up is putting it out there in the interwebs and going through it. And I think that's where it just, there you go. This is now the new journey that we're going to go through. And it took me a while, even the same time, to change my mindset and actually go that I needed to change, not everyone else around me, not my family. Like I'm the one that needs to change to make it better. But there's so many things that, like the first year was not easy. There's like some times where I exploded where, like I said, it is too with the conversation with Sash, where like my daughter was in the closet in the front entry and saying, well, I'm afraid of dad. Well, there's stuff like that you don't want to hear your kids going through. You don't want this one to see your kid or even actually hear it from your kid that they're afraid of you, but that there's also the fact that they don't even come and talk to you. They don't open up to you because of how you are, how you react, how you say stuff, right? And like when it hits you, it's like a huge. It's kind of like when my mom died. There's like a huge wave that comes on top of you, and you can't like stand still. You're not gonna brave the wave. It's gonna come, and you're gonna go with it. And however times you're gonna turn and tumble in it, and they're gonna throw you, or you're gonna come back up to take a breath. You don't even know what's gonna happen, but you're gonna get thrown somewhere, and maybe later on you're gonna feel like a calm of the water coming through. And I think that's where we're starting to become more calm because I'm applying everything that I've been learning in the last almost 2 years. But it's the opening up portion and not allowing yourself to self-isolate is something it's hard and it's not easy to go through. But the thing is that there's so many benefits that I've noticed from doing so and from actually applying it and going, well, you know what, what's the worst case that's going to happen? Like if people don't want to hear it, they know what to do, turn around. Like when you open up, someone is going to come and talk to you because you're just pushing it out there, right? But the thing is that it's by changing the inside and going, well, this is what I'm doing and you're doing this. Well, the vibe, we talked about the vibe at the beginning where you're sending out a different vibe now. So there's that vibe is going to resonate with someone else. You're going to attract that, which is, it's crazy to think, but it's actually 100% true where when you start changing your frequency, your vibration and all that inside towards something that you really want more, towards more positivity, towards what how you really think you should be, which I've always thought that I should be different from realizing that, okay, like I've never wanted to be like my dad, but now I'm living exactly like how my dad was when I was young, but I'm just applying it to my kids. But when I started realizing it and I'm like, oh my God, why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Then you change and you're like, okay, so I'm not going back. And and then when you you reflect back sometimes because you're like, it's fun to know where the process and how far you've gone. but I know like I'm not going back to how it was before 2 years ago.
I'm done with this. I'm not going to be that person. Yeah.
No, but and that's the thing, and and I guess it's okay. And it took me, well, it took me 36 years to actually freaking wake up, but it took me 18 years. It's kind of like half my life was like a journey where the time that I had with my mom, and then the time that from the day that my mom died to now, or to not now, but to when I was 36 and I got the diagnosis and I started waking up and, started saying, okay, I need to work on myself for the betterment of myself, but also for my family and the people around me. It was like half my life. So you're kind of like, okay, there's like two stages. And it's just funny because like I always said, like, and I told the therapist, is like my mom, the first diagnosis that she had was at 36. And I always hated that age. I always told everyone that like that age, that number I don't like because I know something big is going to happen. But like if I reflect now, I'm 37, turning 38 in October. If I reflect back on it, that's basically the big change that was going to happen in my life is this. Like this diagnosis needed to happen. This change in my life needed to happen. It's just that it's not I guess it's not yes, it's a medical
Mm-hmm.
thing, but it's not a life or like there's not a life or death at this stage right now. Like if I didn't do anything, that probably, yes, there would have been a lot different. Like the whole circumstance would have been probably different. Like would I still be with my wife and would the kids still be with me? Probably not. It was not in a good state, but like it just needed to happen. So that big change, that big wave hit me at 36 and I'm still on the voyage. But the thing is that this is a voyage that needed to happen.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, people can say it's like when you get a diagnosis or stuff like that, it's negative, but I kind of take it how Sean said, like once I knew what the name was, then perfect. I know exactly how to tackle it. Like I'll find the resources, and that's what I kind of did. Like they said, that's what it is. Okay, perfect. What is it? Okay, I need some medications. Yeah, not too fun about that, but all right, let's go. This is what I need from medications. Okay. And then after that I was like, okay, I'm going to go research and I'm going to go see all these tools. What can I do? Okay, I need self-reflection. And that's what like books. And then, okay, I want to read this book and get this link, practice these things like meditation, yoga, and then go, okay, how is this important? And why is this actually helping? And then apply everything. And that's what I've been doing since the beginning is not go with, okay, well, I need to take this pill and I need to do therapy every week.
Right.
And then you follow that plan. I'm like, okay, well, you're going to give me this plan. I'm going to see what I can add on to this plan. That's not going to burn me out, but that's going to be additional to the process. And like there has to be a progress because I went from having almost 8 to 10 pills a day to now having 30 pills a day. So so if you, I guess the more you apply yourself, the more benefit you receive. And I know for a fact for me, that's the case right now. Like it doesn't mean that it's going to be, all flowers and dandelions later on in the road. Probably not. There's probably going to be a roller coaster even after this whole process, but at least I know that there's more tools that I have that I didn't have before that I can utilize, or people that I can, reach out to that I haven't done before that I know that, I know that they understand and that they can help me, or that they have that little kind of saying or word or, pat on the back that they've done before that will aid me to push on further, or to give that additional motivation or inspiration to proceed more and continue on. Or like for me, a lot of it is seeing how the kids will come and talk to me from time to time, or seeing how, me going back and saying to the wife, did you see that? That was really fun. Or, you see this picture, and being more present. And I guess by doing that, kind of like I did the cold dip recently with my daughter, and I don't know if people like, for me, I don't like, I just did that there, but like there's a point in that video that it always makes me smile and it kind of warms me up inside, is because there's a point that I looked at my daughter and I smiled and she'd smile back at me. And I know there was, and like in that, like in the video, yeah, I can notice that there's that connection, but it brings me back to exactly when that happened. And I can actually feel the emotion at that time that I had with my daughter, and the connection that I felt in that portion, because like she's the first one that came in. She's the one that, when I was in Afghanistan, she's the one that was in the stomach of my wife. Like she's the first picture when I was in Afghanistan in the middle of the sandbox that I got the ultrasound of my wife, and that picture was the one that was in the book that I would read when I was in Afghanistan. So there's that kind of being able to be there more present with her in that moment. Like I cherish it even more now because because of this healing process. The fact that, I'm actually having these opportunities to get more connection with my kids and my wife that I didn't have before, just because of this journey, because I'm of this willingness to change, which is it's not something that's easy. And I think like it's hard to accept the fact that you want to change, that you need to change, that something within you needs to be retweaked, rewired. But once you have that acceptance, like it just trickles down. It's kind of like an onion. Like there's more layers, but the thing is that the more layers you start peeling off or getting better, the more you get to the root. And then once you hit the root, then that's where like the magic happens, because then that all the rewiring that you've been trying to get done, the default setting that you've been trying to instill, once you're at that root, that, okay, there you go. Now press start. This is how it is from now on.